There is a moment, if you have ever been on a long camping trip, where you stop noticing your own smell. Day 1 you are aware of it. Day 3 you are managing it. By day 7 it has simply become the baseline. You are not clean, you are not dirty. You are just human. Now imagine that feeling, but extend it across your entire life. No soap, no deodorant, no change of clothes, no shower, no toothbrush, no way to wash your hands except a river if one was nearby. And add to that the smell of the fire you slept next to, animal hide you were wearing that was never fully cured, the food that rotted slightly before you ate it, and the fact that everyone around you was in exactly the same condition. Question is not really whether ancient humans smelled bad. The question is what smelling bad even means, when nobody in your entire world has ever experienced the alternative. Let us start with the basics. The human body produces sweat from two different types of glands. Endocrine glands, which produce the watery sweat that cools you down, and apocrine glands, which produce a thicker secretion, concentrated in the armpits, groin, and around the nipples. Fresh sweat from both glands is almost odorless. The smell comes from bacteria, specifically from bacteria on your skin, breaking down the proteins and fatty acids in apocrine sweat and producing volatile compounds as a byproduct. The worse the smell, the more bacterial activity. Bacterial activity increases with warmth, moisture, and time. An ancient human running across a savanna in 35-degree heat, wearing animal hide that trapped moisture against their skin, would not been near enough water to wash in several days, would have had extraordinary levels of bacterial activity on their skin. The smell would have been intense by modern standards. Here is the first complication. Modern standards were invented approximately 150 years ago. Everything before that, including your own great-great-grandparents, would have smelled in ways that most people today would find intolerable. A Roman soldier on campaign was not washing daily. A medieval peasant was washing perhaps once a week, if they had access to water and it was warm enough. Even wealthy Europeans in the 17th century more likely to change their linen undergarments to manage smell than to bathe, because bathing was considered medically dangerous. Water was not reliably clean. The concept of daily bathing as a standard hygiene practice only became widespread in the late 19th and early 20th century, driven by soap advertising as much as by medicine. So when we ask whether ancient humans smelled bad, we need to be clear that the standard we are measuring against is extremely recent and extremely specific to cultures with abundant clean water, soap, and infrastructure. Now let us talk about what ancient humans actually did to manage smell, because the evidence suggests they were not completely indifferent to it. Archaeological evidence of grooming tools goes back at least 70,000 years. Combs made from bone and shell have been found at sites across Africa, Europe, and Asia. These were not decorative. Combing removes lice, debris, and dead skin. It is not washing, but it is maintenance. Evidence of body painting with ochre, a red iron oxide pigment, goes back at least 100,000 years. Some researchers believe ochre had an antimicrobial function, in addition to its decorative or ritual uses. These iron oxide compounds do have mild antibacterial properties. Putting a mineral compound on the skin is not the behavior of a species, completely uninterested in its own body surface. More directly relevant, many ancient and indigenous cultures have documented practices of using plant materials for cleaning. Sapin-rich plants, meaning plants that produce a natural soap-like lather when wet, were used across Africa, the Americas, and Asia. Long before commercial soap existed, soapwort yucca and various agave species all produce usable lather, and were documented in use by cultures with no contact with each other, which suggests independent discovery. The behavior of using plants to clean the body is not a modern invention. It is ancient. There is also evidence from isotope analysis of ancient teeth. Many prehistoric populations were eating a surprisingly varied and plant-heavy diet, which affects body odor significantly. Diet is one of the strongest drivers of body odor after bacteria. People who eat heavily meat-based diets produce stronger body odor. Those with more plant-based diets, certain sulfur-containing foods like garlic and onion, produce detectable odor compounds that are excreted through the skin hours after consumption. Ancient hunter-gatherer diets were highly variable by region and season, which means body odor would have been highly variable too. Here is what the archaeological record cannot tell us, which is probably the most important piece. How well adapted were ancient humans, detecting and being bothered by each other's smell? The human olfactory system is remarkably plastic. It adapts rapidly to baseline smells. A smell that is present constantly and consistently essentially disappears from conscious awareness within minutes of exposure. This is called olfactory adaptation, and it is why you stop noticing the smell of your own house within seconds of walking in, even though visitors notice it immediately. An ancient human group in which everyone smelled similarly have had collective olfactory adaptation to that shared baseline. The individual smells that stood out would not have been sweat and body odor, which were universal. They would have been deviations from the baseline. Sickness, which changes body odor in detectable and specific ways. Infection, which produces distinctive volatile compounds as bacteria metabolize tissue. Dietary changes, which shift the chemical profile of sweat. Fear and stress, which activate apocrine glands specifically, produce a chemically distinct sweat that researchers have found humans and animals can detect and respond to, even without conscious awareness. In other words, smell in an ancient human group was probably functioning as an information system, rather than an aesthetic experience. It's telling you things: who was sick, who was scared, but eaten something different, who was a stranger from another group, with a different bacterial microbiome, therefore a detectably different odor profile. Research on human odor recognition has found that humans can identify genetic relatives by smell alone, detect immune system compatibility through smell, and can tell the difference between stressed sweat and exercise sweat. These are not trivial abilities. They are likely ancient. There is also the question of the mouth. Ancient humans did not have toothbrushes. They did have teeth that were often in remarkably good condition by the standards of post-agricultural populations. Studies of pre-agricultural skulls have found lower rates of dental decay than in early farming populations because hunter-gatherer diets were lower in simple sugars to feed oral bacteria. They did not brush their teeth in any modern sense, but the foods they ate were not producing the same levels of plaque and decay. Some researchers have found evidence of teeth cleaning behavior, including toothpicks made from bone and wood, deliberate scraping of tooth surfaces, visible on dental remains. The breath of an ancient human is probably not pleasant by modern standards, but may not have been as uniformly terrible as the lack of toothbrushes implies. Then there is the skin itself. Modern humans wash away the natural oils and microbiome of the skin constantly with soap and water. This actually disrupts the skin's own defensive microbial ecosystem, which is why people who use very aggressive soaps or wash too frequently often develop skin problems. Researchers studying populations with limited access to soap have found that the natural skin microbiome, left undisturbed, does a reasonable job of regulating itself. The mix of bacteria on unwashed skin, not necessarily worse than on washed skin. It is different. Washing does not remove bacteria, shifts the population, and in some cases the bacteria that thrive on washed skin are no better at odor control, the ones they replaced. So here is the honest answer to whether ancient humans smelled bad. Modern Western standards, yes, almost certainly. The combination of no soap, minimal washing, animal hide clothing, heavy physical labor in warm environments, and a diet that included significant meat consumption would have produced a body odor profile that most people today would find overwhelming within seconds. By the standards of their own time and social environment, probably not particularly. Everyone smelled similarly. The body adapted to the baseline. Smell was functioning as information, not as an obstacle to social interaction. And they were doing more to manage it than we typically imagine. Through grooming, through plant materials, through diet, and through a skin microbiome that was doing its own maintenance work undisturbed. The most accurate answer is probably they smelled the way humans smell. When you take away everything that was invented in the last 150 years to stop them smelling that way, just to say like humans, actual humans, the kind your entire species was, almost its entire existence, the kind that, if you sat next to one long enough, you would probably stop noticing. Then about 4 minutes,